No, there is no Trepang2, and I'm not really 100% sure why they named this game like that, but what I am sure about is that this game is really good. It's the spiritual successor to 2005 original F.E.A.R that we never got. Trepang2 understands what many other modern games fail to grasp: simplicity. The keyword for why this game is good and why you should play it is simplicity. So, let me explain. In 2005, Monolith Productions, now probably best known for making really good Shadow of Mordor and it's okay Shadow of War, made a game called F.E.A.R. F.E.A.R. It's written that way because it is an acronym for First Encounter Assault Recon. Yeah, it did not make sense then, it does not make sense now, but it was a horror first-person shooter that came out in the same year as Call of Duty 2. In my opinion, the best Call of Duty game, and Resident Evil 4, probably the best RE game, but it definitely left an impression on some people, most notably on the team that made Trepang2, but more about that in a second.
Movie's exciting.
They really wanted to create this John Woo style action movie blended with elements of The Ring. So that was their focus from the beginning. You know, they're avid consumers of all other types of media, so they know what's scary, they know what's fun.
The horror element actually suggested itself and seemed to fit right in with the story that we had come up with initially, which did have some kind of paranormal elements to it already.
The key thing is the blending of this over-the-top, just visceral action game with just great elements of horror that are tied in with suspense and just the whole eeriness of it.
Yeah, I can definitely see the John Woo, Gun Fu influence on this game. As well, of course, The Ring, because of Alma, the series' resident creepy little ghost girl. And they did an excellent job. The game was not only for that time visually impressive, but the mixture of horror and action really did make it feel unique. So the gameplay is first-person shooter with more viable melee than other shooters and slow-mo ability that these days is common, but at that time was most notably represented in Max Payne and not a lot of other games. The combat was fun, fast and quite gory. The devs were really proud of the AI that, as they claimed, was more advanced and smarter than in other shooter games. And yeah, they actually could gang up on you or flank you and do other interesting stuff. So I suppose that is true. But the largest selling point for F.E.A.R definitely was the horror aspects. I remember being too nervous to play it properly, as the jump scares and generally the horror tropes were not so overused in video games, and they really did put a fright in me in 2005. So we play as a soldier in special elite unit that is tasked with hunting down a rogue operative, but as soon as we arrive at the facilities, we start to experience horrible hallucinations and a little creepy girl in red dress appears. The story then turns to actually quite horrifying twists and turns, but is very intriguing and gripping, especially for 2005, where often game stories outside of JRPGs were somewhat simplistic and very straightforward. Here, the drama, horror and action mix together very well. Oh, and the visual side was interesting as well. The grey of concrete mixed with the red of Alma's dress and, well, blood was a very interesting mix of sterility and minimalism. Partly because of technical limitations, I'm sure, but partly also because of an artistic vision. And the visceral gore really came through because of this. I will not say that this is my favorite game or even my favorite shooter, but it was cool enough and scary enough to leave a lasting impression. One day I will do a longer video on F.E.A.R series and how the third part killed the franchise, but onward we go now to Trepang2. So basically this was a placeholder name that the team, well actually one guy at that point, gave to their Game Jam prototype game. This was their second game after small video game about a sea cucumber, I guess? Because Trepang is a name for a sea cucumber, I guess, and so they made it like a placeholder name, but it actually stuck. I hope that is true, at least that's what internet says. If not, sorry guys, come on my channel for an interview, let's clear up the air. So this is an indie developer hobby project that started back in 2016 with one dude, Wilson C, who made the demo. Later he made up with two other guys from Half-Life Mother scene, and they started to work on this game to expand it, to grow it, to make it something more than the demo Wilson made. And they worked for 7 years on it. And I must say, time well spent, guys. There is a level of polish that these days we don't even get from AAA games. But of course, one of the reasons is that this game is very simple. And I mean that as a compliment. It is a very straightforward shooter with horror elements. Why I don't call it horror shooter like original F.E.A.R. I will explain in a second. But yeah, you embody an elite super soldier that works for an agency that is trying to stop a madman that has created crazy mutants. But as usual, everything is not as it seems. Or is it? But yeah, besides that, you have two arms that hold guns, and you use those guns to kill enemies. Simple. And I love it. Well, to be fair, there is a cloaking ability, and just like in F.E.A.R, a reflex time thing that allows you to murder enemies while they move in slow motion, but in general, still, very simple concept. The tutorial consists of, I don't know, like 4 text boxes? Because why would you need more? It's a shooter, we know how to play shooters. I don't know why games like Callisto Protocol stretch their tutorials for more than 1 hour if they don't offer like 10,000 different mechanics like, I don't know, Persona 5. Then I can understand why the tutorials actually spread out throughout the game. You get new abilities and new mechanics like 20 hours in. But for basically simple action games, you don't need that much. And Trepang gets it. I love that Trepang does not fall into the traps of modern games. It feels good and it looks good. And like I said, it's simple. There is no unnecessary open world upgrade trees or puke emoji crafting that modern games feel obliged to add. If I had to find one unnecessary thing, then it's the hub area where you walk around, have some story exposition and change the color of your outfits. That you don't see that much because, well, this is an FPS. But to be fair, it is minor, and in light of all the freaking crafting and open world every game throws at me these days, these things do not feel intrusive, and if somebody wants to customize their outfit and that makes them love Trepang2 more, then awesome. But enough about that, let's talk about the gameplay, because all other things are trivial. And what can I say? It's good. It's well done, straight to the point. While some reviewers say that this is almost a stealth shooter, I really strongly freaking disagree. No. This is a shooter with ability to cloak yourself for a short period to get away from the enemies or get a jump on them. And it works wonderfully, as the enemies are really smart, really good. Again, the connection with F.E.A.R. They boasted that they made really good AI, and here, also, the enemies are really smart. Even on normal difficulty, they can easily outflank and overwhelm you. They are not the Nazis of Call of Duty too. They don't run at you shouting, they flank and cover and do a bunch of other things, just like in the original F.E.A.R. So as this is inspired by already multiple times mentioned F.E.A.R, there of course is the horror aspect to the game. But I would say it's more in the style of Doom here in Trepang2 than it was in the original F.E.A.R, because in the original F.E.A.R the game was trying to actually F with the player. It was trying to affect you psychologically as well. Here the horror is presented in a more straightforward way. The monsters rush you and you kill them. That is why I say it's FPS with horror elements. And I think the scariest part for me was actually the game's intro, where you awoke in a mysterious facility, your hands were handcuffed, and you had to hide and run from the enemies. You could not defend yourself. This short section of the game offered the scariest moments for me in the game. But I don't necessarily think that is a problem overall. But a little bit maybe it is, because in the story sense I think F.E.A.R presents a stronger and more engaging narrative because of Alma, because of her story that slowly unravels throughout the game. It feels more personal and therefore more interesting. Trepang's story feels more detached, and therefore I lost some of the initial interest that I had for the story. But I would not say it's bad, it's different. But of course, if you look really hard, you can find the similarities. Gore is here as well, of course. Here we can see as well that mixing of the, like I said, concrete sterility with gallons and gallons of blood. And it looks really good. It looks impressive and also a bit unnerving. And that is a big plus, of course. But how does it feel to play, you might ask? In one word, great. The game feels cool and fun, the melee is brutal, the guns feel nice to shoot, and the combat is challenging even on medium settings. And if you really get into the game, you will unlock various cheats like big heads for enemies and unlimited stamina and everything else. And as an old gamer, I love this. I love that Trepang devs have not only captured what made F.E.A.R good, and they really did, they really captured every aspect what made F.E.A.R good, but also they have captured the whole era of gaming with these ridiculous unlocks. So I'm really happy I played it. Looking at Trepang2 now, I am starting to wonder why have we not seen more games influenced by F.E.A.R, because I am pretty sure that I and the Trepang devs were not only people who played and loved F.E.A.R. Definitely not. Maybe it was because, like with Dead Space 3, that F.E.A.R 3 was so bad and so big of a letdown that it left a bad aftertaste and nobody wants to touch it. I don't think that is true. Maybe we are a bit too early for these Half-Life 2 and F.E.A.R inspired shooters. Right now we are in the age of boomer retro shooter. So maybe Trepang is the sign of what yet is to come. Shooters inspired by that age, like 2003 to 2010 or something like that. I don't know, but what I do know is that Trepang is really good. And those 7 years have been really well spent. I hope that more and more people will play this game and appreciate it, because it is fun to have a game that is focused on gameplay, like pure gunplay. There is sound, there is violence, there is action, and sometimes you do not need more. I'm not saying that every game that offers puke emoji crafting is bad. Sometimes I do like to engage a little bit of crafting, but other times it is so refreshing to experience a game like Trepang. I really like Trepang2, and I hope you guys will like it as well. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, do all of those other things, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye!